Hello guys, how are you?
I'm Hardeep Singh. Welcome back to your own YouTube channel, IELTS updates and recent exams. For more updates related to recent IELTS exam writing test topics, listening, reading, practice test, and speaking, you got guesswork. Please guys participate in everyday listening and reading practice test to achieve your desired band score in your actual IELTS exam. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Press the bell icon for the upcoming notifications. Don't forget like, subscribe and share my YouTube channel and my Facebook page, IELTS updates and recent exams.
Part 1.
You will hear a telephone conversation between a customer and the receptionist at a courier company. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 8.
Good morning, this is Sam speaking. How may I help you?
Hi, my name's Marco and I'm calling to inquire about sending some goods to Canada.
No problem. What's your full name, please, Marco?
My middle name is Pronto, that's P-R-O-N-T-O.
Sorry, Marco, just your surname will be fine. That's all we need for the form.
It's Cebriana Tori, that's C-E-B-R-I-A-N-A-T-O-R-I.
Great, and your address, please?
I live on Grimsby Place.
Grimsby Place, okay?
But wait, you mean the address from where the goods will be collected?
Right.
In that case, I better give you my mum and dad's address. My stuff is there temporarily until I make the move. Same street, house number 25 in Grimsby, and the postcode is GB8 6BY.
Now, Marco, tell me what you'd like to have shipped.
I'm moving to Canada, so I have a fairly big container for my belongings, you understand.
Of course. What are the dimensions?
It's 2 meters high, 1.5 across, and 3 meters long.
My, that's huge.
Tell me about it. Moving day is going to be a nightmare.
And what will this container contain, then?
Well, to start with, there's my television. I'm also taking a brand new sofa bed with me, as well as my fridge, freezer and home computer.
I see. That all sounds rather valuable. Do you know the total value of the goods in the container?
Yeah, I estimate about £5,000.
Before listening to the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 9 to 10.
Excellent. Now, shipping to Canada is not by any means cheap these days, so this is going to cost you £500?
That would nearly pay for a new TV and sofa.
It's a lot of money, isn't it? But as I said, shipping is an expensive business. How do you intend to pay then, Marco?
Credit card, okay?
Fine. I assume you are the card holder.
Actually, it's my sister's account. Mine is a little tight for me at the moment with the expense of the move, so it's either a case of ask sis or ask the parents. Which would you choose?
I see what you mean. Okay, I'll take the details in a moment and confirm the collection date. But first, let me just ask you a few questions about your move to Canada. The Canadian government requires all shipping companies to carry out a thorough check before agreeing to ship goods into the country. And part of that check is a personal profile of our customers, you see. So, why are you moving to Canada?
My girlfriend's Canadian. I'm going to live with her.
And what will be your employment status over there?
Well, I'm travelling on a working holiday visa, but I hope to secure a work-sponsored visa shortly after arrival.
Let's see, a holiday visa?
No, a working holiday visa. That allows me to stay in the country for 12 months as opposed to 60 days with a holiday visa.
Okay, no.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 2.
You will hear a bank representative briefing a group of customers on how to register for online banking. First, you will have time to look at questions 11 to 16.
We're very pleased to announce the launch of our new online service. Now, though it might sound a little daunting for those of you who are not so familiar with the internet, let me assure you that the registration process is very simple indeed. I'm going to go through it with you step by step today, and afterwards there'll be a question and answer session should you have anything you would like to ask. The first thing you must do before you can gain access to our online services is send us the profile request form over the internet through our online portal, making sure you attach a scanned copy of your passport to go with the form. Then you'll have to wait for verification within 5 business days. Once you're verified, you'll then be sent your own personal verification code number, and you'll need to input this on the link I've posted at the top of the handout I've given you. www.hcbs.com/ACC setup. Once you enter the verification code, you'll be taken to the registration page, where you'll be asked to complete and send through your online account registration form. Having done that, you'll then receive an email message asking you to confirm that you're the owner of the email address you have supplied. Simply log into your email account and follow the link in the message you've been sent to the account update page. You will then be prompted to enter the details of your bank cards and all accounts held at the bank to complete your online profile. Once you've linked your cards and accounts to the profile, click the Update button on the top left of the screen. This will take you to the activation page. One click of the activation button and you're then set up to go and can start using your online accounts immediately.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20.
When you've done all that, you'll be able to log in and out of your account as you please. I'd like to draw your attention to the screen now for a moment. What you're seeing is an example of a member's online profile. This is the welcome page. Centre top, a list of your accounts and balances will always be displayed. You can click on any account on the list to see more details or customize a statement. When you want to log out, simply click the button at the top left of your screen. Directly under it, you'll see a button named Edit. Clicking on this will take you to your profile page where you can amend your customer details as often as you like. While you are navigating, should you ever want to return to the welcome page, simply click the Home button located at the top right of the screen and you'll be taken back to the welcome page immediately. Next, take a look at the drop-down action menu just below the centre of the screen. This gives you quick access to the online transactions portal where you'll have the freedom to effect online transactions at the click of a button. One last thing I'd like to point out is the fact that there should always be a lock icon on both the bottom right and left of the screen. This confirms that your connection to our server is secure and safe. If the lock is ever missing from your screen, log out immediately and report it to our customer service team, who are available 24 hours a day at 1-800-365-365.
That is the end of part 2.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 3.
You will hear two students talking to their teacher about a seminar paper they are preparing for their population studies class. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25.
So, how's your seminar paper going?
Oh, it's almost ready. My head's just full of statistics at the moment.
Is there anything you found particularly interesting?
Yeah. For instance, about where people choose to live when they migrate to Australia. The focus of our talk is on migration to Sydney, but we found we needed to look briefly at migration to other parts of Australia as well.
Most migrants go to the big cities, but it isn't the same for all nationalities. For instance, over the last 5 years, with the British, only about 1/3 of them altogether went to Sydney and Melbourne.
So where did most of them go?
Oh, all over the place. But for some reason quite a few ended up over in Perth.
Oh, that's not a bad place to live.
No, but with the Chinese, 26% of them choose to live in Melbourne and 58% in Sydney.
Really? Do you have any idea why the Chinese and British have such different settlement patterns?
Well, not really. Sometimes it's hard to find out exactly why people choose to live where they do. There's a thriving Lebanese community in Melbourne, but more than 7 out of 10 people from Lebanon were drawn to Sydney.
I see. So you've covered groups from Europe, East Asia and the Middle East. Do you have anything on people from other regions?
Yes. When we went through data from the Department of Immigration and the Bureau of Statistics, we found that in the case of the Malaysians, for some reason only a minority chose Sydney and Melbourne, but I don't know exactly where most of them ended up. I think quite a few of them were attracted to Queensland because of the climate.
Yeah, it must be hard for people coming from a tropical region to get used to colder winters. What about the New Zealanders?
Well, they don't need a visa for Australia, so they're counted separately from all other nationalities. But the vast bulk of them have ended up in Sydney. You'd think that Melbourne would be more to their liking because its climate's more like what they're used to, and the distance from New Zealand to Melbourne is about the same.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30.
You also looked into why people choose the places they do, didn't you?
Yes. Well, people often go where the work is. I mean, it's no use finding a nice place to live if you're going to be unemployed. But there's a more decisive factor, and that is that people generally like to live near their friends and relatives, and with people from their own country, so they won't be so isolated. And they do that despite the higher housing prices in the larger cities.
Yeah, rents are getting ridiculous. But hasn't Sydney always attracted people? I mean, even people born elsewhere in Australia?
Well, historically that was the case, but even though Sydney's grown a lot recently, there's been hardly any increase in the number of Australian-born people living in Sydney.
Why is that? I mean, I can understand why people would be leaving. A lot of people feel Sydney's getting too crowded and hectic.
But that can't be the reason, because they often end up in places such as southeast Queensland, where the infrastructure simply isn't coping with the rapid population growth and faster pace of life.
The research shows that the ones leaving Sydney are particularly middle-aged and elderly people who own the place they live in. By selling their Sydney home when they retire and buying and living in a cheaper one elsewhere, they then have more funds left over.
It must be difficult making that shift at their age.
I think moving or migrating's hard for anyone.
Quite right. But what effect is migration having?
Well, there are all kinds of effects. But sociologists talk about a growing gap between Sydney and Melbourne on the one hand and the rest of the country on the other. You see, the most recent data shows that 60% of the overseas arrivals went to those two cities, even though Sydney and Melbourne combined have got just 40% of the country's population.
But you've got to remember that Australia is one of the most urbanised countries in the world. A good 50% of the population live in the state capitals, not including the urban fringes. Is anything being done to promote growth in other regions?
Well, the government's got several proposals. We need more people in rural areas, but no one's suggesting that we encourage farmers to migrate to Australia because agriculture is very capital intensive in this country. But the government's thinking about having lower tax rates on private firms that employ newly arrived migrants in towns outside Sydney and Melbourne. Of course, these days the government doesn't want to actually provide jobs for them, but they are willing to favour employers who employ them.
Do you think that'd work?
I don't know. There's nothing to stop them moving to one of the two big cities if they feel like it.
Exactly.
In fact, the statistics don't give the full picture. When they migrate, people very often initially live outside of Sydney. So in the statistics, they're recorded as having settled outside Sydney. But then after a while, many make the move to Sydney. So the real picture's even more out of balance than what the statistics say.
Statistics really can be a slippery thing sometimes, can't they?
That's for sure.
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 4.
Emma Bell is an agricultural scientist. In the following lecture, she describes some of the advantages of the hemp plant. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40.
When we think of progress, we tend to look to the future. However, the past can also provide inspiration. Today, I'd like to outline some of the many ways in which the hemp plant, a plant that was used very widely until the early 20th century, can benefit both humans and the environment. You may remember that when the use of computers became more widespread, there was much talk of the paperless office. Yet now far more paper is being used than ever before. Most of that paper is made from wood, but it can also be made from hemp. Hemp is a fast-growing annual plant that can be harvested within 4 months of germination, whereas a tree takes 20 years. This means that a hectare of hemp can produce 80 times as much paper as a hectare of trees. In fact, hemp was the main source for paper production until the 20th century, and the paper it makes is of superior quality to that made from wood. Many of the rivers in the vicinity of today's paper mills suffer the effects of pollution from bleach and other chemicals used in the manufacture of paper from wood. In contrast, paper made from hemp does not require bleach. So much clothing these days is made from cotton, yet fabric has been made from hemp for over 7,000 years. The trouble with cotton crops is that they take a heavy toll on the environment and are often dependent on irrigation. Hemp can grow using far less water and does not need as much fertilizer or pesticides. In fact, hemp crops even have a natural resistance to pests. Clothes made from the tough fibre of hemp also last longer than those made from cotton, which is not something that will make clothing manufacturers very happy. But another way in which hemp is the superior material is that it's more effective in blocking out UV rays from the sun, which can cause skin cancer. To top it off, clothing made from hemp is very comfortable to wear. In parts of the world that still don't have electricity, this versatile plant can also be used to light lamps. Back in the days of sailing ships, when hemp was used to make ropes and sails, lamps were often fueled by whale oil, which gave off a much stronger smelling black smoke. The pursuit of that oil was one of the reasons for the existence of the whaling industry, which hunted many species of whale almost to extinction. Closer to our own time, Henry Ford used hemp in the production of his first cars. These days, with panels being made of metal, even a minor accident can lead to costly repairs. Being derived from a plant, hemp panels would be less expensive. Yet perhaps an even more significant consequence would be that instead of old cars being left to rust by the roadside, an abandoned car made from hemp would rot faster. A further advantage in the case of automobiles is the fuel. One of the major causes of global warming is the use of fossil fuels in cars and trucks. Methanol is an alternative to petrol, and it can be extracted from hemp. This fuel is already used by racing cars, and it doesn't produce as much air pollution, thus placing a smaller burden on the air we breathe. Hemp is also a source for a variety of foods. The oil that's obtained from the plant can be used to make cooking oil, butter, cheese, and even ice cream. Flour derived from hemp has a greater protein content than normal wheat flour, and its seeds contain all the amino acids, providing a form of protein that's more easily digested than that in soybeans. Carpets made from hemp are more durable than other carpets and are resistant to mildew, which grows in humid or damp conditions. It can also be used in the home to produce furnishings such as fiberboard, furniture, and even plastics. Paints and varnish made from petrochemicals contain poisons, whereas this is not the case with those produced from hemp. Hemp plants are best grown close together, and because they produce an abundance of leaves, the ground underneath the plants is shaded, which hinders the growth of weeds. So farmers don't have to spend money on potentially dangerous herbicides. It thrives in areas with low rainfall and may be useful in combating salinity because it doesn't need irrigation, and its long taproot can reach underground nutrients and water. As a fast-growing plant, it's an easily renewable, biodegradable and ecologically sustainable source of a vast range of products that are currently made from polluting resources, such as coal, metals, gas and oil. This is quite plainly a case where we can make progress by learning from the past.
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
So guys, don't forget like, subscribe and share my YouTube channel and my Facebook page, IELTS updates and recent exams. For more updates related to recent IELTS exam writing test topics, listening, reading, practice test and speaking, you got guesswork. Please guys, participate in everyday new IELTS listening and reading practice tests to achieve your desired band score in your actual IELTS exam. For more IELTS material, visit my official website www.ieltsupdatesandrecentexams.com. The link is given below in the description. If you need PDF files of latest IELTS material, then please join my Telegram channel. So guys, please write your score below the comment section. Again, thanks for listening. God bless you all guys. Stay tuned, stay safe.